This week, Jewish people all over the world are celebrating Passover and telling the story that I am about to tell you. They're also singing the song that we just sang, Dayenu, which means it would be enough. You can read the story that I'm about to tell you in the Hebrew Bible, but most Jewish families read it from a book called a Haggadah, which is like a guidebook that is used during the Passover Seder. The Seder is a special dinner that celebrates Passover. It tells the story that I am about to tell you through songs like Dayenu and prayers and eating some special foods in a very special way. So here's the story that is told during Passover. Long ago, the Jewish people were slaves in Egypt. The Pharaoh, or the leader of Egypt, made the Jewish people work really hard by doing things like making bricks and building pyramids. Even though the Jewish people said that they wanted to leave, they didn't want to work hard anymore, the Pharaoh would not let them leave. His heart was hard. So the story goes that the Jewish people called out to God and begged to be set free from the slavery. And God heard their calls and sent a man named Moses to help them. Now Moses went to the Pharaoh, and Moses said, God told me to tell you to let the Jewish people go, to set them free. But I told you the Pharaoh's heart was hard. He wasn't going to listen, and he said no. So Moses said, well, God is going to send 10 messages in the form of plagues to help you understand that you need to let the Jewish people free. A plague is something that's really bad, something that is harmful, something that might destroy a crop or hurt an animal or a person. A plague could even cause death. It's a really bad thing. And these plagues were sent to tell the Pharaoh that he needed to listen. He needed to let the Jewish people go free. And so the plagues started, and they did things like turn the Nile River really gross and icky and muddy. Now the Nile River was sacred to the Egyptian people, and so that was really a big deal. But it didn't change the Pharaoh's mind. It didn't soften his hard heart. He continued to enslave the people. So there were more plagues. There were plagues that destroyed crops, so there was no food to eat. There were plagues that caused pain, plagues that hurt animals. And through all of this, the Pharaoh would not change his mind. Sometimes he did. Sometimes he said, okay, make it stop, and we'll let the people go. And so the plague stopped, but then the Pharaoh changed his mind back. Ooh, I know. So through all of these plagues, Moses kept going to the Pharaoh and saying, listen, you need to let the people go. You need to give them their freedom. It's the right thing to do. But the Pharaoh's heart was hard. There was even a plague of frogs, where frogs just fell from the sky, and there were frogs everywhere. And maybe if you're someone who really likes frogs, who thinks frogs are cool, that would have been fun. But it actually, if you think about it, wouldn't have been super fun, because like if there were frogs everywhere, frogs in your soup, you wouldn't want that. So even with the plague of frogs, Pharaoh would not let the people go. Finally, there was a last plague. It was a plague that caused death to some people, even members of the Pharaoh's own family. But that plague passed over the homes of the Jewish people. After that plague, finally the Pharaoh said, you know what, get out of here. He let the Jewish people go, but they knew that his heart hadn't really changed. He was just fed up. So they knew they had to get out of there very, very, very quickly. So they went running as fast as they could. They didn't even have time to let the bread rise, to let the dough rise to make bread, which is why our Jewish friends eat matzah during Passover, because it's a flat, unleavened cracker. So the Jewish people ran to the edge of a sea, the Sea of Reeds. And now they're stuck because they're at this sea and they're trying to figure out how to cross it. Do we go around the sea? And they hear Pharaoh's army right behind them. He had changed his mind again, that big meanie. So what was going to happen? Well, the story goes that God sent a wind that separated the sea, that caused 2 walls of water to come up and dry land in between. And the Jewish people were able to run through the dry land all the way to the far side of the sea. They were able to escape. And Pharaoh's army, when it came through the water, as soon as the last member of the Jewish people got to the far end of the water, the waves came back down, and Pharaoh's army was trapped in the sea. The Jewish people burst into song. They were free. And that is the Passover story. Thank you for listening to my story today.